Welcome to Dispatch, the weekly show designed to keep you on track as you build and operate your layout. I'm Roy Smith, your dispatcher. Thank you for joining me tonight. On tonight's show, your layout photos, the question of the week, your comments, and a big shout out. The studio audience is here with me as always and waiting for the show to begin. I want to mention that everyone here tonight will receive a prize at the end of the show to take home. How exciting is that? Okay then, let's get started. First up on tonight's show, your layout photos. Each week, I invite you to post photos of your layout on a Facebook page called the N-Scale Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision Group. And each week, many of you do. And then I bring your photos over here to Dispatch to share with everyone during the show. So once again, I have a bunch of layout photos to share with you. And here they are. Now, when the show ends, I want you to go over to the Facebook group, join the group, and post a photo of your layout there because we want to see what you're doing on your layout. When posting your photo, it doesn't matter if your layout is N-scale, HO scale, or any other scale. We just want to see what you're doing. I will put a link down below that will take you to the group. When you see this photo of Echo Canyon on my layout, you will know you're at the right place. Next up on the show, the question of the week. As we all know, building scenery is one of the most popular and enjoyable aspects of the hobby. With this in mind, here's this week's question. What is your favorite material to use as a scenery base on your layout? In other words, what supports your scenery? Many of you responded to the question, and I've compiled your responses in this chart. As you can see, extruded foam is the favorite scenery base material among those of you who responded to this question. In fact, it's very popular among model railroaders everywhere. Typically, it's colored pink, blue, or yellow. You stack it up in layers and then carve it. Then you can cover it with a layer of sculpt-a-mold or plaster cloth. Of course, extruded foam is expensive, and it may or may not be available where you live. It's certainly not available here in Panama where I live. Fortunately, Steve Brown of It's My Railroad sent me some of it back in October of last year, 2018. I used some of it, and I still have some. The second favorite scenery-based material is plaster. There are many types of plaster products you can use as a scenery base. For example, patching plaster and plaster of Paris. Typically, you start by building a supporting structure out of cardboard lattice, wire screen, or wadded-up newspaper. Then you dip paper towels in a soupy mix of plaster and place the towels over the lattice, wire screen, or wadded-up newspaper. Or you can do this using a commercially available plaster cloth. And third, white styrofoam. This is what I have mostly used as a scenery base on my layout. Of course, cutting and carving white styrofoam normally produces a lot of those little white beads of styrofoam that can get all over the layout and train room. So I've done nearly all of my cutting and carving of the white styrofoam outside. I also have used a hot wire cutter which produces almost none of those little white beads. Here's White Mountain of my layout before painting it. I glued layers of white styrofoam together and carved the mountain outside. Now, after installing any white styrofoam terrain feature on my layout, I normally apply a coat of watered-down spackling paste or Sculptamold to it. Along with white styrofoam, I have also used cardboard lattice, which I covered with paper towels dipped in watered-down spackling paste. There's no best material to use as a scenery base. It's a matter of personal preference, and that's true of just about everything in model railroading. That is, personal preference. You may want to try several different techniques and materials for building your scenery base to see which one you like best. And now, the question for the coming week. Track cleaning is one of our least favorite things to do on the layout, and yet it has to be done. So with this in mind, here's next week's question. How do you clean your track? And what fluids, if any, do you use to clean your track? Be sure to post your response to this question in the comments down below. I will tally up your responses and present the results in next week's edition of Dispatch. Remember, the question for the coming week is, how do you clean your track? And what fluids, if any, do you use to clean your track? And now, it's time for your comments. On Saturday, I uploaded a video called A Sectional Approach to Model Railroading. In it, I told you what I'm doing or planning to do on my layout. I mentioned that there are two different approaches that I could take in working on my layout. I talked about the first of these two approaches, the sectional approach, and I will talk about the second approach, the task-oriented approach, in this coming Saturday's episode. All right, let's take a look at a clip from Saturday's video. I haven't done much of anything on the layout since returning from my trip to the States 2 months ago, but that's going to change starting right now. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. I've been sharing with you my railroad and model railroad adventures during my recent trip, but now it's time to get back to my Saturday morning layout updates. Today, I'm going to tell you what I'm now doing or planning to do on the layout. After such a long time away from the layout, it's hard to decide what to do first because there are so many things I could do. I'm just not sure where to begin. Well, let me start by showing you the first of two approaches that I could take as I get back to work on the layout. I call this first approach a sectional approach, and in it, I select a section of my layout and work on everything on that section before moving on to the next section. I call the second approach a task-oriented approach, and in that approach, I try to accomplish a specific task regardless of where it is on the layout. Let me begin with the sectional approach today, and in my next episode, we'll turn to the task-oriented approach. There were tons of comments in response to this video. Now, let me just share a couple of them with you. Dustin of Dustin's N-Scale Railroad wrote, "Sections versus tasks. It's an age-old conundrum. I'm doing a little of both. I need to be task-focused and lay my track around my layout. However, I'm also being sectionally focused and working on my yard and brewery areas." Dustin, I suspect that just about everybody in the hobby takes both approaches in the course of building a layout. Sometimes we work on sections, doing everything in a given or on a given section before moving on to the next section. Sometimes we work on specific tasks, regardless of where those tasks may be on our layout. There's no right or wrong approach. The idea is just to have fun, whichever approach you take. William Bryant wrote, "Always hard to decide where to start and what to do first once you decide where to start. I can't ever stick to a plan if I make one. I end up all over the place as if I had no plan from the word go." I hear you, William. I have often had this same problem. There's so much to do in the layout, and sometimes I don't know where to begin. Most of us spend a lot of time and effort when planning our layouts, especially when drawing up track plans. Perhaps a work plan of some kind would also help guide us through the actual process of building our layouts as well. That is, in a logical, step-by-step process. Adrian Gadsden wrote, "I make a to-do list to keep me on track." No pun intended. This seems to keep my focus on all of the things to do so that I will not get overwhelmed. Well, Adrian, I'm glad you mentioned the term to-do list because I have a to-do list as well. Not everybody wants to be bothered with a to-do list, but such a list keeps me organized and headed in the right direction. It helps me prioritize the tasks that I have to do. And if I had to remember all of that stuff in my head, I would go crazy in a matter of days. As Steve Brown would say, that's just how I rail, baby. And speaking of Steve Brown of It's My Railroad, Steve wrote, "Hi, Roy, my vote is sectional, although I'll dig whatever you decide to do." Thanks, Steve. My construction of Echo Canyon was a good example of the sectional approach to model railroading. I concentrated on that section of my layout during 16 episodes on this channel. But normally, I take the task-oriented approach on my layout. We talked about the sectional approach in last Saturday's layout update. And this Saturday, we'll talk about the task-oriented approach. I may even attempt to do one of the tasks on my to-do list. I'd like to thank all of you for your comments posted in response to last Saturday's layout update. Your comments are one of the best ways that I know of to share the hobby with others. So, as always, I'd like to encourage you to go down to the comment section and share your thoughts and experiences with your friends in the hobby. Be sure to do that when tonight's show ends. And if you haven't seen last Saturday's episode, A Sectional Approach to Model Railroading, be sure to go over and watch it. I will put a link down below that will take you directly to it. Now, it's time for tonight's big shout out. And tonight's shout out goes to N-Scale, CSX, and Rio Grande. This channel features the layouts of two friends in New Zealand. One is the N-Scale CSX and the other is the Rio Grande. The CSX N-Scale layout is set in 1990 when the chassis system, as well as B&O and C&O, could still be seen. And the Rio Grande layout is set in 1996. This layout is set in the area from Denver to Pueblo in Colorado. I think you're going to like this channel, so let's go over and take a look at a recent layout update on the channel.
We did a little bit here for the last few weeks. Finished off this corner where we cut out. Just got to re-scenic it. We sanded back the skirt. We've also painted the river. We're going to get ready to put the water in and finish that off. And we started laying the water down, the waterfalls. We're just going to make the waterfalls using Woodland Scenics kit and make the proper piers for the viaduct. We ripped out some trees and put some other ones in, just to look less cluttered. Sealed this up. We're getting ready for ballasting for the bulk of the layout shortly. Tidied up this area here, put some new trees in. Still lots more to go. And we're going to do right around the corner there with new trees.
Now you've had a chance to see a brief clip from one of this channel's videos right here on Dispatch. Here's what I want you to do next. I want you to go over to the channel and check it out for yourself. I will put a link down below that will take you there. If you like what you see when you're over there, be sure to subscribe and be sure to mention that Roy Smith sent you. Well, that just about concludes tonight's show, but before you go, I want you to remember three things. First, I want you to remember that I normally upload 2 videos each week. Dispatch on Tuesday nights, in which I get to interact with you, and which you're watching right now, and layout updates on Saturday mornings, in which I show you what I'm doing on my layout. Be sure to join me this coming Saturday morning when I will be talking about the task-oriented approach to model railroading. I may even select a task from my to-do list and do it in this video. Second thing, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss the upcoming episodes. And third, there are 173 other videos on this channel right now. I want you to go over to my videos page and check them out. I will put a link to the videos page down below. Well, thanks for joining me here on Dispatch tonight. And as for those of you who are here in the studio audience, be sure to pick up your gift as you are leaving. Each of you will receive a bag of static grass.
What a cheapskate.
Oh, well, maybe you were expecting to receive A Caddo Big Boy 4014? Well, until our next get-together, happy railroading. I am Roy Smith, and I will see you again very soon.